grow by 2029. Transactions and token burn explained. Today, Linea is processing roughly 22,000 transactions per day, based on the reference point I'm currently tracking. But what happens if this number grows by only 10% every 3 months? Not 10 times overnight, not 100 times, just 10% every quarter. I calculated several scenarios through 2029, and this is where the linear burn mechanism starts becoming particularly interesting. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor or licensed investment professional. Nothing in this video should be considered financial advice. Welcome back to TheAbrahamCryptoLand, crypto risk management and long-term investing. This is the third part of my linear tokenomics analysis. We've already looked at supply, we've looked at burn. Now let's look at network activity. Because without users and transactions, the burn mechanism doesn't matter very much. The previous two videos are available on my channel in the Linea Crypto Investment Strategy Complete Journey playlist. My reference point from August 24th, 2026 is approximately 21,932 transactions per 24 hours and approximately 1.29 ETH in transaction fees per 24 hours. These numbers can change quickly. That's why I'm treating them as a starting point, not a prediction. Let's build several scenarios. Scenario 1, zero growth. Imagine Linea remains at approximately 22,000 transactions per day. No major adoption, no explosion in network activity. The network simply maintains approximately today's activity. Using a simplified economic model and assuming that approximately 50% of transaction fee value eventually represents net surplus after infrastructure costs, while Linea remains relatively inexpensive, we estimated that additional burn through the end of 2028 could potentially reach the area of 500 million Linea. Scenario 2, 10% growth every quarter. Now let's increase network activity by 10% every 3 months. Our progression starts approximately like this: 22,000 transactions per day, then 24,000, then 27,000, then 29,000, then 32,000, and continuing. By late 2028, the model could potentially reach approximately 50,000 to 57,000 transactions per day. Under similar economic assumptions, our simplified burn model produced approximately 800 million to 1.1 billion Linea of potential additional burn through the end of 2028. The range depends heavily on Linea's average price and the actual net revenue generated by the network. Scenario 3, 20% quarterly growth. Now let's make the assumptions much stronger. Imagine network activity increases 20% every 3 months. If economic revenue grows with activity and Linea remains relatively inexpensive for a meaningful part of this period, our theoretical burn could potentially move into the area of 1.3 to 1.6 billion Linea through 2028. Again, this is not my prediction, it's a scenario. Scenario 4, major adoption. The most interesting situation isn't actually 10% or 20%. It's what happens if Linea genuinely becomes widely used. Imagine 22,000 transactions per day becomes 50,000, then 100,000, and potentially much higher. If network economic activity increases several times while Linea remains inexpensive, then the potential burn moves into an entirely different scale. Under aggressive assumptions, we could theoretically begin talking about billions of Linea rather than tens of millions. But this requires something very important: real adoption, not hype, not price speculation. People actually using the network. And this is why I am monitoring transactions. Imagine seeing 22,000, then 25,000, then 30,000, then 40,000, then 50,000 transactions per day over a sustained period. Then I could compare that growth with network fees, burn, total supply, and price. What would make me more optimistic about Linea? Not price alone. I would want to see transactions increasing, fees increasing, burn increasing, and total supply decreasing. And ideally, Linea would still remain relatively inexpensive during part of this process. That could suggest that economic activity is developing before speculation. But what would make me more cautious? The opposite. Imagine transactions decline 22,000 to 15,000, then 10,000. Fees decline, burn becomes insignificant, users disappear. Then my thesis becomes weaker. I am setting today's approximately 22,000 transactions per day as my reference point. I want to come back to this number in the future, and we'll see whether Linea actually grows. Because if Linea eventually reaches 50,000, 100,000, or more transactions per day, while the burn mechanism continues operating, then the Linea supply story could become much more interesting. And that brings us to the final question. What could Linea actually be worth in 2029? That's what I'm going to calculate in the next video. Subscribe if you want to follow this experiment with me.